And with more on what this week holds in Memphis, we say hello to Todd Lewis from TPC Southwind.
Hi there, guys. Welcome to what is normally a steamy Memphis in August. A little reprieve today. The temp's not going to get up into the 90s, but I can tell you a lot of players are going to be sweating it this week. To follow up on what you guys were talking about, yes, the major championships, the players, they're in another category. But outside those 5 tournaments, this may be the most important tournament on the PGA Tour schedule because you advance to the BMW Championship, and then, of course, you get into the signature events next season. I talked to several players who are hovering around that 50 number, and they understand the importance of this week.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just scheduling, right? Knowing that you're in the bigger events and being able to plan. You know, this year I played well and I kind of got in a lot of those events last minute, was scrambling for flights and hotels, all those things. So it'd be great to, to get in that event and know when I'm playing in next year.
Yeah, it's huge. Changes your whole schedule, doesn't it? Even top 30, like that's even better. That would be the cherry on top. So, yeah, that's the goal. That's what we've been playing for all year. So we're in the playoffs. We've got a chance. It's all we want.
It's incredible. If you're in all the elevated events, you can schedule way easier, and you can you play for a bit more points than other people. So I think you can attack the year a lot easier if you're in the top 50.
You know, they are key events on the schedule, but at the same time, just because you're in them or have a spot, you know, it's not like it's guarantee you points or anything, and you still have to go play well. They're tough events. You're playing against the guys that are playing the best as far as off the 50, and then guys that are currently playing well through the different shuffle systems of playing your way in.
Being in all the signature events is huge. You kind of feel like you get almost like you get a head start if you're in all those. You know, there's no cuts, bigger purses, more points, and so to be able to know that you're in those to start the year, it kind of helps with your scheduling too.
Yeah, if you make it to the BMW next week, and then you're in those signature events for 2026, yes, you're playing for more money in those signature events, but you're also playing for what is an equal amount of currency out here on the PGA Tour, more FedEx Cup points. And you may think, okay, if you get into signature events, you're pretty much locked in and there's not going to be a lot of turnover. Not necessarily the case. As a matter of fact, last year, 19 new players moved into the top 50 that were previously outside the top 50. That is a churn of 38%. We will see how many players move in and out of the top 50 and advance to the BMW Championship this week. But make no mistake about it, players are playing not only for this year and the FedEx Cup, but they're playing for next season as well. It is a very important week. Some players are saying that advancing to the BMW is as important, guys, as advancing to the Tour Championship, given the current setup on the PGA Tour.
Thanks, Todd. We'll check in with you a little bit later. It is a particularly important issue, this idea of the churn in this round, because I remember having a conversation a while back with Aaron Oberholzer, who played during the original World Golf Championship era. And Aaron said once you were in those events, and a couple of good finishes was often sufficient just to keep you in that ecosystem for the next year, regardless of what you were doing outside of it, just because things were so weighted in your favor. 19 players who were in the top 50 at the end of last season failed to make the playoffs this time. To me, that is actually suggesting churn. Now, you would expect a good number to be in the top 50 because these are the elite players, but you know, there's 29 of the top 50 from last year are still alive right now. 31 of them made the playoffs, 29 are in the top 50 this time around. That to me seems like a decent churn figure out here. It's not a self-perpetuating ecosystem.
I mean, that's exactly what the Tour was projecting when they first sort of rolled out this series of signature events. They wanted a 60-40 retention to churn rate with getting new players. And I mean, that was certainly the major concern when this was rolled out 2.5 years ago, that these players would just be able to accumulate so many points playing in the elevated events. They'd essentially just drop anchor and be able to run this out for the remainder of their career. You look at some of the new names that have moved into that top 50, it does feel like the right combination. You know, winners this year, whether it was a Ben Griffin or a Harris English, a J.J. Spawn, or Ryan Fox, players who have certainly improved their career trajectory. But you also have players, Eamon, who haven't won, but have been, you know, consistently reliable performers. Players like a Sam Stevens, a Jacob Bridgman, a Harry Hall. those players who have then moved out, I think, also make sense. Some of them are injured, whether it's a Sahith Theegala or Will Zalatoris, but you also have players who are slumping, a Max Homa or a Nick Dunlap. To me, it does feel like the right mix of players who have elevated and also players who have declined in 2025. And if you look at the tour projections, this is exactly where they hope they would be.
Yeah, I think there's also the only issue that to me exists around the top 50, because I do think during the course of the season, there are enough ways to play your way in as well, and play your way in for one or two events. You're not necessarily guaranteed to play your way in for the entire season. There is a lot of sort of a revolving door as the season wears on. Jake Knapp's one of those guys who played 3 signature events, but he missed 5 of them, and he's one of the better performers on the tour. To me, it's the question that ultimately the tour is going to have to answer here is how much of a meritocracy is this meritocracy? And that's where you get to the sponsor exemptions question with the signature events. And I've always been in favor of sponsors who are putting up the check being given a tremendous amount of latitude in terms of their ability to draw attention to the field. That shouldn't be an issue when you have the best players in the world showing up for all of these signature events. So to me, it becomes a real issue when you have sponsor exemptions going to guys who may have missed the top 50 by a mile, whereas guys who just missed it aren't necessarily as popular, don't have the stature, aren't as connected, and they're not getting the starts and the same latitude getting into these top 50 signature events as other guys do. And we've seen that over the last few years where, you know, Jordan Spieth or Adam Scott and Ricky Fowler, Webb Simpson, guys who have a great record, who are additive to any tournament, but they have gotten a lot of free passes into the most lucrative events on tour that they had not actually qualified for.
Yeah, Rex and I have talked a lot about this on the pod, and you remove sort of the name value of a Jordan Spieth or a Ricky Fowler, who certainly received their fair share of sponsor exemptions this year in the signature events. Take them out of it. It's not really about who the player is. It's should those players be granted access to tournaments that are not available to everybody. Unless they do something and there's some sort of rule change where they get rid of sponsor exemptions, you're probably going to have a scenario in 2026 where this pops up again. You look at some of the notable names who are right inside that top 50 bubble. Right now, Jordan Spieth is still right there, despite having access to the signature events. Min Woo Lee is certainly a popular character. Tony Finau, Ricky Fowler, these are all players who would certainly warrant attention from a tournament director in 2026 if the PGA Tour does not make the move and really make the signature events open to everyone who earns them and are not necessarily given a spot.